Andy Goob from the Good Life YouTube channel. Today we finished looking at Adam's beehives from the last video. Then we go to the Blount County Bee Association where Bill Grimmett tells us about different types of honeybees. Alright, so this hive is complete. It's got an extra box. It's got some hive beetle traps. Let's go check this one out. Let's see what we got in this hive. Whoa. What's going on here?
Honey, super.
A little ball going or something.
Yeah, that's fun time.
A little rave going.
Nice. They on every frame.
Not drawn. That one's not drawn out yet.
You're drawing that one, but it's not.
I wouldn't have consider that now. Yes, that was drawn. So I got two on the side.
This one I can tell you's a no, because there ain't even
That's three then.
really ain't no bees over here.
No. So you got four, so probably need to go another week.
Yeah, and that's close. I don't know if they'll make it a full week though. Did we put that on last week?
2 weeks ago probably.
If it was 2 weeks, then we're definitely fine. If it was 1 week, dude, they drew out so many frames. Now, granted, they took 3 of those since we were in here last. I think you got brood on this side.
Yeah, we ain't got to get down there.
But this queen over here is just crazy.
So this is swarm number 2, the first one we actually caught. And it's got full brood patterns.
Not bad. Wow.
Alright, so both those swarms look good. So we will check them next week and see where they're at.
Well, this month in the bee yard, we need to be, honey supers is the big thing right now, and keeping them on there when we've got a good nectar flow. It's easy to get behind. You don't want them to fill it up and then not have space to put some more. To make sure you keep a close check on your honey supers. I know I have some. They're not filling it up, and I have others that are full, so I'm not opposed to taking some from one and giving it to another if I think that's better used to do that. And I have done that, some of them. Also, just because you see a lot of activity going in and out doesn't mean you have a queen. I know I've got 2 right now, 2-4 hives that do not have a queen. So I'm in the process of trying to get queens from them, and I have another nuke that I looked at today that doesn't have a queen. And so they disappear sometimes for no apparent reason. But keep a check on your queens. Just look in the brood box, make sure you have eggs. If you can't find the queen, if you have eggs, good possibility you have a queen. At least she has been there within the last 3 days. Tonight we're going to be talking about different races of bees and also some hybrids, and maybe how you can develop your own hybrid. And Western honeybee is what we're talking about, races of Western honeybee. There's also an Eastern honeybee, but for what I understand, they don't interbreed with the Western honeybee, but there are several subspecies of Western honeybee, and the Western honeybee, the official name is Apis mellifera, and that means Apis is bee, mellifera is honey bearing, so it is honey bearing bee, and that's what that stands for. And this Let me read this and interpret it for you. It says, sow your seed in the morning and do not put your hand down in the evening, for you do not know whether morning or evening soil will succeed or whether both of them alike will be good. What that means, if you have two hives, it's better than having one, because one may not do well and then the other one was more likely to, but then both of them may do well. That's what that means. It also means if you are grafting a larva to make a queen, that you need to go ahead and do it twice, because once may not be enough. So hopefully it will be. Honey bee is two words. And Entomological Society of America is the one who decides how this is written, and they decided it's two words. Regardless of what your dictionary may say or your spell check. I know my spell check always wants to make it one word, and a lot of the dictionaries want to make it one word, but it's technically and officially it is two words. The deal is, if what they're talking about is describing is actually a bee, then it is two words. Like, for instance, horsefly is a fly, so it's two words. However, butterfly is not really a fly, so that's one word. And dragonfly is not really a fly, so it's one word. And so that's your etymology lesson for the day there. That's good. And there are about 4,000 species of native bees in North America, but none of them are the honeybee. The honeybee is not native to North America. But before I start looking at that, let's just think a moment about some of the characteristics that you would want to see in your bees, or you want to see in your bees. What would make the perfect bee? And so gentle is one thing that's been mentioned. Honey production, I think. Did somebody say honey production? Okay. And mite resistant, that's what Al said. And these are things that people try to breed and get into the bees. Brood production, cold tolerant. Probably haven't thought about that too much. The bees that we have, most of them, we don't have really cold winters, but people up north are more interested in cold tolerant bees than we might be, but still we want them to last through our hard. The last winter we had give them a pretty good shape. Heat tolerant is something too. Some bees are just not heat tolerant. Can you think of a bee can you think of a race right offhand, just from what you know, that is heat tolerant, that we might not want around? Yeah, the Africanized bees, they're heat tolerant. And swarming is not something that I like for my bees to do. And some bees are more inclined to swarm than others. But when you're looking for bees, some that doesn't swarm quite as often is better. Fast spring buildup versus slow spring buildup. Well, that can be a plus or a minus. But if they build up too fast, they may swarm. But you do want them to get in there and get busy and be ready. Not prone to rob. That's something that I have trouble with sometimes. You have to really stay on top of that. When we have a dearth, the Italian bees are prone to rob. They'll go robbing their neighbors. Not as likely to drift. Some bees, and this is something I haven't thought about, some bees are more prone to drift than others. For instance, if you have two hives sitting out there, and the foragers from one hive go out, and coming back, they may wind up, get a little bit confused and wind up in the neighbor's hive. And so that's not necessarily something you want to happen. Why would that be? Why would you not necessarily want that to happen? Drifting might carry diseases. So, you know, one might have a disease and carry it to the one next door. So that drifting is not the worst thing in the world, but it's not good either. Queen longevity, you know, you want your queen to live a long time. These are some of the things that propolis production. Now, you're familiar with propolis. There are some bees that produce less than Italian bees, and some produce more. So I think Italians produce enough for my estimation. The German bee, I'll start with it. It was the first bee to come to the U.S., and it was brought in 1622 by I guess, some of the first Europeans that came into the country. They are, they're a hardy bee. They handle cold weather real well, but they don't handle disease so well. And they have brood diseases. But they did produce honey, and that's what they brought. Also, well, you can see a low hygiene behavior goes kind of along with the brood diseases, because the hygiene behavior is what that is. That's when the bees sense there's something wrong with the brood, and they will pull it out and take it outside before it has time to hatch and spread the disease. So hygienic behavior is something that's good. And the German black bees don't have that. There are not any around now, and but the thing that I have heard, some of the old timers, I like to say old timers, what's an old timer? I don't know, that's somebody a lot older than I am, that's what that is. But they talk about that they're being so mean. They just really were pretty bad about stinging. So they weren't real popular. But the Italian bee is really hard to beat, I think, because they have produced a lot of honey, and they're relatively mild. We'll talk about their characteristics. They are from Italy, and the Apennine Peninsula, or the boot here. And they're pretty well isolated. You can see that Italy has ocean on both sides, and then the Alps, the Swiss Alps are up here, so that kind of isolates them in this area. And they have grown and become accustomed to that area and developed their characteristics in that area there. And the color is light yellow or brown, yellow or light brown. They're relatively gentle, and you know, if you have 5 hives, you know that some are more gentle than others. Some I can go in with my gloves off. Some I put my gloves on before I go in them, because I know they're not going to be. They overwinter well. They build up quickly into spring, and of course, that leads sometimes to swarming, doesn't it? If they build up too quickly, if they have a lot of resources, you have to really be careful in the spring and April to make sure that you have enough space, because they'll swarm if you don't. They accept new queens well. They're good foragers. Good foragers make good pollinators. If you're going to pollinate crops, you want something that's good foragers. Good honey producers. They have less propolis than some of the darker bees, but their extended brood rearing causes them to carry over a lot of bees through the winter. And so that means that they have to have a lot of feed for the winter. So they have to have a lot of honey to go into the winter, or else they will starve to death. And a lot of them starve to death in January and February. The mites, they don't do so well with not mites, and that's one of the things that a lot of breeders are working on now, trying to get them to bred so that they are more mite resistant. And they do have a tendency to swarm. Good build up in the spring and a tendency to swarm. So that's a negative. And they're easily provoked to rob. I know when we have a dearth, and if you open a hive up, the foragers are really good. They're out looking for something, and they have their antenna, and they smell flowers as they go by. But they also, if you have a hive open, they also smell the honey in that hive. And if there's no flowers out there for them to get, then they sometimes will say, aha, and they will go back and get help and come check out things. At this hive, if they can overrun the defensive in the hive, then they will go in there and, especially in a weaker hive, then they will go in and rob it out. Some people call it survival of the fittest. Now, Andy, I don't even want to hear what you got to say about it. The Goldolian bee is not too dissimilar to the Italian bee. They originated in the Austrian Alps and Yugoslavia and the Danube Valley. And their characteristics, they overwinter well. They have smaller populations. They don't have as big, large populations as the Italians do. They are one of the more gentler breeds. And when you're reading about these, some people will say they're more gentle than the Italians. Some people say maybe they're not quite as gentle. But you know, even within my bee yard, I have some that are more gentle than others. So sometimes it's a little hard to say that one breed is more gentle than the other. They are one of the more gentle breeds. So that's a good one to have. They conserve their winter food well, so they don't use up a lot of food. They're smaller. They go into the winter with smaller numbers. But they forage earlier. They're more hardy about foraging. They'll get out earlier than the Italian bee, earlier in the morning and earlier in the year. They will go out when the weather is not quite as good. So that's one of the good things about them. They're not prone to rot, and they use less propolis. Now that might be good, but it might be not so good, because propolis is one of the ways it serves as a disinfectant in the hive. So some propolis is good. They tend to match the brood supply to the food. When the food supply drops off, the queen quits laying or cuts back on laying. And so that's a good thing. And less drifting. I suppose this has to do with being better able to zone in where you're going, better direction. But they do swarm frequently, and so that's not good, and they don't deal well with long, hot summers, and so that kind of puts them out of our. So if you're thinking about cornelians, that's probably not a good one to think about. However, it might be that if you're in an experimenting mood, that you might cross some of these with the Italians and kind of experiment, play around to see what you might be able to get. If pollen is scarce, they pretty well quit brood rearing.